welcome to the Witch's Cauldron. My name's Paula. Today's video is one in the Wheel of the Year series, and this is on Yule. I realized that last year real life got in the way, and I did not record a video for the Wheel of the Year about Yule. So I'm kind of making up for lost time in this video. Usually for these videos, what I like to do is just go over the general correspondences of the Sabbat, and then when it gets a little bit closer to the yearly Sabbats, I do another video on things like the astrological correspondences that can influence your rituals and give you guidance where to kind of direct your ritual and the intent of your ritual for Yule. And of course, I'm talking about Yule in the Northern Hemisphere that we're coming up. This is December 2019 when I'm recording this. It would be midsummer that would be celebrated December 21st in the Southern Hemisphere. And there is a video on midsummer, and I will link that down in the description box and maybe throw it at the end in the end screen for you. So let's just talk a little bit about Yule and what it means. This is a time where the Holly King has died and the goddess gives birth to the Oak King. Okay, and it's the solstice means that this is the shortest day and the longest night of the year. So from this point forward, we start seeing more light during the day, and our days start getting longer until we get to midsummer. Midsummer, the summer solstice, is the longest day, shortest night, and then the process reverses. So for older civilizations, winter was a very scary time because you had to have had a very successful, harvest to get you through the winter, through the months where the ground is fallow, where there may not be things as plentiful to feed your family. You would have put away as many root vegetables as you could, get your grains together for, to get you through the winter months. Also to take care of your livestock that you are keeping through the winter. It took a lot of effort to maintain and feed livestock because there's no grass for them, there are no pastures, so you have to actually feed them. So you had to put away grain and food for your livestock to get you through to the spring when you would go through, when you started having lambs being born, kids, calves, and things like that. When in the springtime, the livestock that you kept started bearing their own fruit and having, little ones running around that would then be nurtured and used for food later on in the year. You would have already had time to smoke and preserve meats from the animals that you slaughtered, either, that you went hunting for venison or wild boar, anything like that, or for the livestock that you kept, your cow, your pigs, goats, whatever, lambs, sheep. You would have taken steps to even smoke fish to get you through to the winter, or salted the meats to get you through you and your family through the winter. It was also, with the additional darkness, the beliefs were, the dark brought, bad spirits and more time for mischief, okay, from the other world or the underworld. So let's take a quick look at some of the correspondences that are affiliated with Yule and the general intent for your rituals. So this would be a time to do spell work and ritual work related to happiness, hope for, the coming year, unconditional love, peace, strength, healing the world, healing the environment around you, and world peace. And it seems kind of weird that I would say healing the environment around you, but you have to stop and think. Ancient civilizations just didn't have the corner supermarket to go and buy their food from, okay? They had to raise their own food and be self-sustaining. So they always took care of the earth. You would let certain fields go fallow and not strip them of all the nutrients. You put back and you took care of your environment because it was going to sustain you for years and years to come. It's also a time when you can think about world peace. And I know that kind of seems, especially now, it seems really unrealistic because there is such turmoil. But, there's always hope for mankind. So the symbolism involved with Yule is hope after darkness. It's the light bringing back the sun. It's the rebirth of the sun. It's the rebirth of the god. Another symbol is the actual wheel of the year, okay, an 8-spoked wheel, as a physical representation of the wheel of the year. Other symbolism are, like evergreen, like wreaths that I have, hanging up behind me. The Yule tree and the Yule log, okay? And the Yule log, some of us have a hard time, being able to kind of incorporate that into our traditions in the classical way, because we may not be able to, have an open burn of a log. We may not have a fireplace. We may not be able to live in an environment. If you're in a city environment, there's really nowhere for you to do anything like that unless you happen to have a fireplace. So you can take a log and bore out places for tea light, candles, and kind of make your own Yule log. And I'll pop a picture of an example of one right over here, I think. I always get mixed up which side things go to. So other common, your Yule herbal correspondences are bay laurel, blessed thistle, chamomile, cinnamon, evergreen trees, holly, ivy, juniper, mistletoe, oak leaves, pine, pine cones, poinsettias, rosemary, sage, and wintergreen. The incense correspondences that are really good, like the resins and other spices that you would use, are cedar, cinnamon, clove, frankincense, juniper, myrrh, orange, and pine. My personal Yule incense that I do just about every year, I have juniper berries from my previous year's Yule altar. I save my juniper berries from that. I add that in, 1 part juniper berries, 1 part frankincense, 1 part myrrh, and then I also put in pine needles from my altar decorations from the previous year. And then I incorporate that into my incense for this year. So that's a way that you can kind of also honor that Yule log tradition, where you would have your Yule log and then you keep the remnants of it and you use that to light your next year's Yule log, okay? Um, Oil correspondences for Yule are cinnamon, ginger, orange, pine, and wintergreen. Um, some of the goddesses that are typically affiliated with Yule are Aphrodite, Brigid or Brigid, Demeter, Fortuna, Gaia, Hel, Holly, Ishtar, and Isis. And the gods are Apollo, Attis, Balder, Bacchus, Dionysus, the Green Man, Helios, Lugh, the Oak King, Odin, Ra, and Sol. The crystal correspondences are bloodstone, clear quartz, diamond, emerald, garnet, and ruby. The color correspondences are gold, green, red, and white. The typical kind of colors that you see, for quote unquote Christmas decorations. The animal correspondences are bears, deer, owls, the phoenix, reindeer, snow geese, squirrels, stags, and wrens and ravens. The foods that are typically affiliated with Yule are apple cider that's been spiced, cinnamon cakes and cookies, dried fruits, eggnog, gingerbread, mulled wines, roasted meats, spiced meats or peppered meats, roasted apples, warm and warming drinks, and wassail. And one of the things that I do every year, and as a matter of fact, I'm going to be doing this tomorrow, is I use my mother's applesauce based fruit cake or Christmas cake as my Yule cake, and that is what I incorporate into Cakes and Ale. I will put that recipe down in the description box. It'll be a link out to a Google Doc. If you want to try your hand at it, you need to get on it in the next day or so, because it does need to have time for the apricot brandy to flavor it. But it has, and when you think of fruitcake, you think about the junk that get in the store. It is nothing like that. It is actually more of a dried fruit Christmas cake. Okay, a more traditional Christmas cake than it would be like what most Americans think of for fruitcake and that nasty stuff that gets in the store. This is actually stuff that you want to eat, and I actually have people offer to pay me to make this cake for them every year. So I will put that down in the description box. And if you're so inclined, you're more than welcome to, print it out and use my, it's actually my family's recipe. It's over 100 years old because it was my great grandmother's recipe. So typical things that you do for Yule also include exchanging gifts. And the gifts were typically things, especially, in your pagan practices, whatever your pantheon is, whether, you call yourself Wiccan, pagan, heathen, whatever. It's always a wonderful thing when you take the time in the time leading up to Yule to make talismans and amulets and charms and make them for those that you love, and to really focus on the energy of your home. And, again, some of the things that you want to do in preparation for Yule, and again, it's like I tell you in every daggone video, it seems like you do like a house cleansing and blessing. It's another time for you to take the time to get rid of the negative energy in the house, to kind of get your chaos under control, and to do some good cleaning, and then really prepare your home, magically and spiritually for the Yule celebrations. And usually, my Yule celebration, we usually have turkey and honey glazed ham. I go out and I make, homemade dressing. I do a cranberry relish, which is, got some nuts and cranberries and oranges in it. And, preparing really warming foods that just kind of like comfort food, okay? And when I say comfort food, it's some people do more of a kind of like an Italian kind of pasta fest. Some people do, like my ex-in-laws used to do the Feast of the Seven Fishes on Christmas Eve, do various, kinds of fish dishes or seafood dishes. It's all about your traditions and carrying forward the traditions, and especially where I originate from, the Appalachian area of the United States. Our traditions were usually passed on in an oral, through oral tradition and oral history. A lot of folks, you got to stop and think. A lot of folks 150 years ago, a lot of them didn't know how to read and write. So a lot of the traditions were passed from generation to generation through their oral history. So it's a good time for you to get together with your family and sit down and spend time telling the traditions of your family, to tell little stories about your family, to tell, quick little anecdotes, to go through picture albums, to remember those, that came before you. I always include my ancestors in everything that I end up doing, all of my sabbats, all of my esbats, and my spell work. My ancestors are there with me hand in hand. It is very important to remember that Yule is a Sabbath of hope, because you start seeing the light increasing, spring's right around the corner, and you have hope for the new year. So you want to take forward that energy, okay? The rebirth. That everything will start awakening, and you may have, some really nasty winter to get through, but you have that hope because the light is increasing and that springtime is coming. So with that, my friends, there are 3 books that I can recommend to you that I use that are so good, and they've got not only, suggested activities, they've got recipes, they've got ideas for, incense and making gifts and crafts you can do with your kids and everything like that. And the first one is Llewelyn's Sabbat Essentials, and it is on Yule. I will have these recommendations linked down in the description box. They are Amazon links. They are Amazon affiliate links. So if you click on them and you purchase using that link, I do earn a small commission if you purchase something from one of my recommendations. The next one is The Old Magic of Christmas by Linda Raedisch. I probably just absolutely murdered the author's last name. But this goes through a lot of the really old traditions of the Christmas season of Yule. And on the back, it says it all. 'Tis the season for witches, elves, and a legion of ghosts. So this is actually one of my favorite books about the season. And again, it'll be linked in the description box. And then a book by one of my favorite ladies and favorite pagan authors, and that is Dorothy Morrison. And this was Llewellyn's previous Sabbat series, and this is on Yule, okay? And it's by Dorothy Morrison. If you've been a witch for or a pagan for very long, you have probably heard of Dorothy Morrison. And she is literally one of my favorite authors of pagan literature. So, with that, my friends, I hope you have a blessed, blessed Yule, and that you and your family, your loved ones, know nothing but health, happiness, and prosperity in the coming new year. So, with that, my friends, merry we did meet, merry we will part until we merry meet again. Be well and walk in love and light, everybody. Bye.